Welcome back to another episode of Two Plain Sports. It's game day eve. We're dropping this on Thursday, a pseudo Friday this week since OU is actually playing on a Friday to open the season against Temple. We're previewing the game in this video. Gonna talk a little bit about Temple. We did our research. It wasn't good. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that. And we'll talk about Oklahoma. If you guys watch our depth chart video, probably going to be a little bit of a continuation on that. So we'll just go in, preview the game real quick, what we're excited about, what we expect, offense, defense, all that jazz. Before we get any deeper into this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you know when we post video. Like I've said before, now that we're back, Tuesday, Friday is going to be our regular posting days, except for this week. This is basically Friday, pseudo Friday, game day eve. We're going. All right. And follow us on all social media. Links are down below. All right, let's get started. So, if you watched earlier this week, we dropped the depth chart video. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. We go in depth into this depth chart. Basically, if you want a summary, a lot of injury prevention and then a lot of positioner battles that that are trying to line out here over the next couple weeks before we get to probably Tulane. I would say is probably where the coaches would like to have a better idea, but definitely by Tennessee.
Yeah,
They
Tennessee.
probably want to have 80 to 90% of this ironed out. Let's start on Oklahoma's offensive side of the ball and Temple's defense, because biggest question mark for Oklahoma right now, offensive line and how it clicks. If you guys haven't seen the depth chart as of today, and let me pull this up again because my phone just fell asleep. As we all know, 5 new starters. There's no one returning from last year's starting group. So as of today, you've got Michael Tarquin as the starting left tackle, Jacob Sexton as a starting left guard, Branson Hickman as a starting center, Babechi Nueyu as a right guard, and Jake Taylor as a starting right tackle. New group. Can these guys put it together? I have a feeling it's going to be like a mishmash of any variation of the two deep on the offensive line for the first couple of drives. We're talking for quite a bit. Brandon, what do you think of the Oklahoma offense, the line, if you want to get further into that, or any other part of the offense, and how they match up against this Temple defense?
I don't think you can realistically take anything away from this game. As bad as that sounds to say, you look at Temple last year, a club that was 3-9, 1-7 in the American Athletic, got hammered by a lot of teams, especially teams that we beat. They lost 55-0 to SMU, who we beat, and SMU was a good club last year. I get that. They lost by 3 scores to Tulsa. They lost to Nate. I think, the offensive line, again, we've talked about it a million times, and it's still a fact. That is the question mark of the team. The offensive line should look incredible against Temple, and you can take 0 away from that. Again, without trying to shit on Temple so hard, it doesn't mean much of anything. See, these are the games that just kind of suck for us as fans because Oklahoma is going to win this football game. Spoiler alert, I'm just going to throw it out there. I think there's, it's going to be, and it's going to be bad. It's a 43-point spread, and it's a game that happens every year where we sit in and we look at week 1 and we go, man, that's a lot of points, whatever it is. And it always hits. It always covers. It always does, this and this and this. But why it sucks, I think, as a fan is because the only thing you can really take away from this game is doubt, are we good enough to do this and this? Are we good enough to do this and this? Because if Temple scores in the first quarter, say the score is 63-7 final, but if they score in the first quarter, especially like an opening drive touchdown or something like that, and they're up 7-0, we're going to be like, oh, well, we're terrible. We can't beat anybody, right? Or if they have some D linemen who get a sack against Jackson, we suck. We're terrible. I think it's one of those games where I feel like we can't win as a fan. The game has to be 70-0, and everybody has to look fantastic. Otherwise, we suck, right? And I think that's that's why I hate games like this. Because I mean, again, Temple there were 3-9, 1-7 in the American in the American Athletic. It's just there are different levels to this. So like, I hate games like this. It's fun. It's gonna be cool to see us win by a lot, but the only thing you take away from it at the end of the day is we suck when things don't go perfect.
I think that's fair. And for anyone that might be thinking these guys are just being homers, they're going to crap on Temple no matter what, even if they might be a decent program going into the season. Here's what we're basing it off of, which we can only go off last year. Last year, their defense was 121st in total defense, 129th, which was last in interceptions. I think they had a total of 3, if I remember correct, throughout the season. So even with Jackson Arnold's quote unquote tendency to turn the ball over, turnovers here really don't seem like a realistic issue that could come up. Like that, if it does come up, that's a big problem. Like you said, Brandon, like those are things that Oklahoma fans are just gonna kind of linger on for a week until the next one. And then their best statistic defensively was tackles for loss, which they were 68th in. They totaled 67.
Yeah,
When you're
200
down
yards
by
rushing
so
per game.
much, eventually
Yeah.
some of it is going to be like cushion stuff like garbage time,
Mhm.
where the other offense was just basically playing to run the clock down. So a little bit of context there. Offensively, it's just how clean can you play? You don't Jackson Arnold doesn't have to go out there and throw 100% completion for 500 yards and 12 touchdowns. He doesn't
No,
have to
see, and
play
I
video
get
game
that.
numbers.
I
Just has
get
to
that.
play good.
I get that, and I agree with you. I think the problem with being a fan is, especially fans that follow the game as closely as we do. Um, Jackson can throw a ball in that game. Let's say it's a crossing route over the middle that could literally bounce off a receiver's hand. That maybe have just been just a hair overthrown, but a ball that could have been caught. It could bounce into the air, intercepted by Temple, and we're gonna see all over social media how terrible Jackson Arnold is, how terrible this receiving core is, how we can't win in the SEC if we're throwing interceptions against. And that's again, I think this is why games like this, I don't think we can win.
But realistically, like I there things can go bad, really can go really bad if the game doesn't go great. It doesn't have to be perfect, like we've said. But assuming this goes the way even Vegas expects us to go, 43-point favorites for Oklahoma. You probably see Jackson Arnold for the first half, and then maybe like 5 minutes into the third, and then Mike Hawkins comes in. More than likely. I mean, you're probably up like 4 or 5 touchdowns at that point, if not more. You're starting to see more of the backups. At some point, you might even see Casey Thompson come in and play in the fourth quarter. Like that's what you expect to see. If you don't get to that point, that's where you're right, and like a lot of fans will start freaking out. Like, what's going on with this team? It's Seth Luttrell. No, does he know what he's doing? Did Beatonbow was his lack of recruiting high end talent in the earlier seasons now biting him in the ass because he's having to piece this offensive line together from scratch? Like, questions will start popping up, and I bring those up because I know those are a lot of talking points that fans and national media are gonna look at if Oklahoma doesn't perform to the expectation of what we believe and the line believes and OU fans believe where it should be against a Temple team like this, where like 70-7 is where we're like, all right, even garbage time touchdown, whatever, 7 points to them, we beat them by 63.
Yeah.
Cool.
43 is the spread. And if you beat anybody by 43, that is a domination. You know what I mean? But if Oklahoma wins 61-17, you cover. But the entire the entire debate is going to be, well, you gave up 17 points to Temple. Temple did this and this. This was clicking. Yeah, I mean, it has to be. I think it does have to be perfect.
Let's
Or
go to the
damn
other
near
side of the
sweet.
ball. Let's go to the other side of the ball real quick. I
Yeah.
think we've covered offense well enough, but you just mentioned, can Temple score? against this Oklahoma defense. Real quick, some context on Temple before we start shitting on them, because we don't want this to sound like it's just a rain on Temple's parade. But last season, Temple was 24th in passing offense, and you hear that stat, you're probably thinking that's not too bad, right? 3,200 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, not terrible. The bad part is they also threw 16 picks. So they turned the ball over quite a bit when it did come to throwing the ball. 126th in red zone offense. So even if you do give up a big play and let them within the 20, you had a good chance of stopping them and holding them to a field goal. 107th in scoring offense. They only averaged 21 points per game. And 121st in rushing offense, tallying 95.7 yards per game on the ground as a team. So, like, this isn't just the running backs. This is quarterback rushes. This is any sort of trick plays they have. If they have wide receivers coming in for jet sweeps, anything like that, they had less than 100 yards total per game. Looking at last year's performance, and it doesn't have to be a full indication of what's this year, but their offense is replacing a lot. You know a little bit more of that stuff off the top of your head, but when you look at this defense, you bring back key contributors in Danny Stutzman, Woody Washington, and Billy Bowman. And then you have a lot of young guys that should have developed and are going to be just improving this defense along the defensive line. You bring in a transfer like Dominic Williams, who should help shore that up, especially in the run game defense, and hopefully in pass rushing. So if 17 points happens, assuming that it's against the first team defense, I think that's when you're right. Again, things can start spiraling because it's only game one. People are going to be overreacting. It's classic football. When things don't go perfectly your way, it's overreaction Saturday for Sooner fans if things don't go perfect on the defense like we would all like it to. But if it's 17 points against like the third stringers, that's when you probably don't hear very much about it because it's a backup. So you're back there and you don't expect them to be in much game time later in the season.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of say the same thing because I think Temple for the most of the game is going to play their ones. No matter how ugly it is, and I think Oklahoma's going to play their ones for ideally a quarter and a half. I think by about mid-second quarter, you should have a lead built enough to where you are kind of slowly rotating your constant number ones out. And by the way, I don't think we're going to see the full healthy Oklahoma team to start this game because we talked about in our depth chart preview. I think there's a realistic chance that guys like Kanai Walker and Des Malone, who are going to be huge for the defense, start this game. But I do not think they're going to be starters every game. I think Nick Anderson is another great example. I think he's a guy that might not even suit up in this contest, but he's a guy that's going to start every game. So this what you see out of Oklahoma week one is not going to be the Oklahoma of week 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of 2024. It's gonna change. But I think I just shit on everybody on everything about the preview thing, and if they score 17, it's the world ending. If they score 17 against the ones like you just brought up as hypothetical, if that happens, no matter who the ones are in this game, you legitimately have a huge cause for concern because you mentioned their passing yards last year, right? 3,200 yards, 23 touchdowns. All that sounds fantastic. That was by a guy named E.J. Warner for 95% of those snaps, and he's not even there anymore. And the guy that's taken over is he wasn't even their number 2 last year. He was their number 3. They didn't have a running back rush for over 500 yards last season. Like if they put 17 up against the first string defense, I'd be concerned. I don't see any world in which that happens, but that's the thing that you have to understand in this game is I think by mid-second quarter we're going to see a who's who from everybody from Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, let's look at last season real quick. Oklahoma last year went into the year with maybe not the highest of expectations, but you expect them to be pretty good. Game 1 against Arkansas State, For anyone that remembers, Butch Jones was having the most miserable time of his life on the sideline.
Read
Oklahoma
the
won
clips out of
73
that.
to 0. Uh, SMU, a little bit tougher of a game. Oklahoma won 28 to 11. And then against Tulsa, at Tulsa, basically just another home game, 66 to 17. If Oklahoma wins in 66 to 17 fashion, yeah, there's going to be some fans that are just going to look at like when it went bad, but when you win by that much, like a lot of things went the right way. Some of it was let's clean up some of that stuff, and I'm sure the coaches will look at it the same way. I would much rather personally, and it might be an unpopular opinion, I'd much rather see a 66 to 17 game where they might poke a couple holes and it can, but they're fixable issues rather than a 73 to 0 game, and then you go into week 2 against Houston where you might be underestimating the team and then get into a battle to start the week. Like giving them a few points, maybe not with the starters on the field, but with the number twos on the field, just to figure out like what's going on, where's the miscommunication happening, where do we need to improve, might not be the worst thing. Don't let them get 20 points plus, couple touchdowns. Not going to be the end of the world. Keep scoring. Keep it with huge margin of victory. Because now that we're in a 12-team playoff, all that stuff is going to matter. If we're 10-2 going into the postseason conversation, we're not in the SEC championship. It's going to be which 10-2 team was better throughout the season. Oklahoma's got the strength of schedule thing on their side, but if you have a big margin of victory, it's only going to make your case that much better come postseason playoff selection.
Yeah, no, and I think you brought up a great point there. I would rather the same thing happen. I think you win 66-17 and you kind of score those points and point out those loopholes against maybe two or threes or fours depth chart wise guys because uh, to where those guys might not have, I mean, they're obviously not starters, so there's a different in talent, right? Schematically, if they're hitting some things that lead to points, you might be able to shore something up there. It'd be like, okay, if they're consistently hitting an out route, if they're consistently hitting a whatever it might be, an outside toss, an inside zone, a whatever it is, you know what I mean? I think schematically, although you have to eat a little bit of a grain of salt because it's not your number ones and then they're beating guys that are not your ones, but I feel like the defense that's going to be run is going to be pretty consistent throughout the season, just with different bodies. But yeah, no, I mean, I 100% agree. If I'd rather them exploit some things in a game that's ugly, 66-17, kind of like the Tulsa game last year, to where you're not worried about it because that game was ugly against Tulsa the entire way through, and they kind of scored, here and there throughout against whatever, but it was not a game that you look at that and been like, oh man, Oklahoma sucks. It's yeah, if they throughout the game exploit some things, I think, yeah, you're definitely going to learn from that because, I mean, exactly. Houston versus Temple is going to be night and day. And Houston's not going to be a tremendous opponent, but I mean, they are going to be night and day better than Temple. So I think you hit on the head. I think you want to be exploited against some team like Temple on certain things, and maybe not even lead to points, but give up a
Like a
30,
20-yard
40.
play.
Yeah,
Where you're
exactly.
like, okay, that you shouldn't have done that
You have a
there.
chunk play and be like, what happened here? Why did this happen? And then exactly.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, neither you or I think this is going to be anywhere near a close game. Oklahoma should be playing their second, third string going into the second half, if not earlier. Who knows? Maybe this coach is going to look worse than Butch Jones after last year's game one against Arkansas State. Nonetheless, the most important thing, win the week. 1-0, go into Houston, prepare to be 2-0 so that we can just keep building. This is going to be the longest season of college football ever. And I'm here for it. It's going to suck for the players, but I'm so jazzed as a fan because we're going to have a lot of big weeks, not just for Oklahoma, but as college football slate, as college football fans, a lot of fun stuff is going to happen this season leading up to the 12-team playoffs, which is just going to be even better. if Oklahoma doesn't win the SEC, I kind of hope that we get to host a
Yeah.
playoff game because that would be so fun.
Yes.
In Norman, that environment's going to be awesome.
Man, we're playing football at the Palace on the Prairie tomorrow.
Yeah,
That's,
but
I mean,
that's all that
you
matters,
know, I
really.
mean, these previews, I think are going to get more intentional, more in depth, more, you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be, I think, a lot longer of a conversation on these as we progress into the season.
Mm-hmm.
But we're playing football at the Palace on the Prairie tomorrow.
We're right there.
Yes, I think
We're right there, people.
that's the takeaway, I think, from this preview is we're back.
Get
We're back.
excited.
We're
Football
back.
time.
It's the best time of the year again. I think I say it every year, but I think, it's the most joyful time of any college football fan. It is there's hope in the air. You believe. Everybody should be excited. It's go time. You know what I mean?
Except for Temple fans. I do
Except for
feel
Temple
that.
fans, except for Florida State fans, I think that they thought
Yeah.
they came into the season with some high expectations, right? And they lost to Georgia Tech. And maybe Georgia Tech is good. I don't know, but you can't have the expectations that they had and then do that. Yeah, but we don't have that right now. We're 0-0. We play tomorrow in the Palace. Sky high expectations, sky high hopes. We should all be happy. We should all be excited. Let's play ball tomorrow.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's crack a beer open. It's game day.
Mm-hmm.
Get pumped. Like, comment, subscribe. Turn on the notification bell. Follow us on all social media. Appreciate you all for watching. We will see you next Tuesday.